Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of King of Commercial Real Estate. Marjorie Roman here, and we have, as always, our king, Dolf de Roos. Thank you so much for coming today.
My pleasure. Good to see you.
And today we're going to shift more into mindset. So first of all, what are some of the things that you do to think like a millionaire and that you would recommend people to do? One of them, I noticed, especially with the way that you dress, that you don't dress as if like you were really wealthy, that you dress in a really normal, casual way. Of course, fancy as always with your jacket. But I've noticed that it's not like you're going to be showing up with like a Balenciaga shoes or like a Gucci bag. Please tell us more about why you decided to make those choices.
You know, it's an interesting thing. I believe that many people stay poor trying to appear rich.
That's right.
In other words, they think if they fake it until they make it, if they wear those Balenciaga shoes and have the big, fancy, obnoxious watch that everyone can see and they pull their sleeve up to show it off in what they think is a surreptitious manner, but it looks pretty ostentatious. And if you do that before you even make it, then your chances of making it, I think, are reduced because you've got the wrong attitude. And then the other thing I've noticed, and you know, I'm going to mention some names and not everyone is fans of them, but Warren Buffett, who's in a game that I don't play the stock market. I admire what he's done. He's probably made more money in a week than I will in 5 lifetimes. But I still think that for most people, real estate offers better chances of making a lot of money than the stock market does for all the reasons I've explained in books. However, I do admire the man and his thinking powers. And he drives a very modest car. He says until recently he had a 10 or 12-year-old car. And because for him, a car just gets him from A to B. And I travel so much, Marjorie, I'm hardly at home. Why would I want a fancy, $300,000 car in the garage? Yeah, like what did you say, a Maserati?
Like a Mustang or a Maserati?
Or a Lamborghini or a Ferrari. And I enjoy those cars. I'll drive them. I'll rent one for a weekend. Oh, yeah, I'll have fun in it. But to own one myself, where if you blow out a tire, it's $6,000 and to do an oil change, it's $2,000. I don't get it. And you're constantly worrying about it. And, do you leave it for the valet to park? Because what if they want to go around the block in it? Or it just, to me, it's not worth it. I don't value a car to that extent that I want one of those things. And sometimes I think, I'm going to get myself a fancy car. But then the money I need to buy it, I think, well, that's the down payment on this pretty cool commercial deal. So it all depends, and you have to dress for the occasion. For instance, in Asia, there's still a lot more emphasis on being dressed well. So until recently, I always wore suits on stage when I went to events in Asia. And then I noticed something very funny. I once arrived in Hanoi, it was, after a long flight from America. And I got in at midnight. And normally my schedule isn't this tight, but I was supposed to be on stage at 8 a.m. the next morning.
Oh, wow.
With a huge crowd, about 2,000 people. And I was waiting for my suitcase to come off the carousel at Hanoi's airport, and it just didn't arrive. So eventually you're the last one standing there, and you say, okay, it's gone missing. So you go to the baggage office. Well, have you waited? Yes, it hasn't arrived. And they look it up and they say, oh, don't worry. So they were very happy and friendly. We found it. It's still in San Diego.
Oh, no.
It's already been assigned to be put on the next flight. It'll be here in 24 hours. And I said, well, that's a problem for me because I'm on stage in 8 hours at 8 a.m.
Right.
And I have no suit to put on. Oh, don't worry, we'll get it to you. And it said, it'll be here in 24 hours. I said, well, in 24 hours, I won't even be here. I'm going to be in Ho Chi Minh City. I said, well, don't worry, we'll send it there. But anyway, the point is, I got on stage without wearing without wearing a suit. I had casual clothes on.
Oh, wow.
Which was still pretty nice. But I explained, I said, listen, normally I'm in a suit, but I want to say this is what happened. Suitcase didn't arrive, so here I am. They said, ditch the suit, dress like everyone else. So I realized that even there, where there's a lot more emphasis for business people to wear suits and show respect and all kinds of other things, they were encouraging me not to. So at the end of the day, it's not how fancy you dress. In fact, that can backfire because often there's a strong correlation between how well people dress and how much of a poser they're trying to be. Now, I've also hung with some very well-known people around the world, dignitaries and heads of states, and it's totally appropriate when you're going to a meeting like that, especially if it's at all involving public, use people who are going to be there to dress appropriately.
Right.
But I don't need it. If I'm going somewhere, I want a car to be reliable. I'd rather have a reliable German or Japanese car than a fancy one that needs fiddling with every second week.
And at the same time, it's not even a good investment. As you were mentioning, the huge amount of money that you're spending on a fancy car could be easily used towards something that is not going to lose its value, that if anything, it's actually going to increase its value, such as like a property or like a commercial building or something like that.
Well, that's true. But the counter argument is you reach a point where you don't need the income from the extra building. So why not buy a $300,000 car? And part of my reason is I don't like that when you park it somewhere in a car park, you have to worry about it, or is someone going to, scratch it out of defiance.
At that point, that becomes more an stressor.
Yeah, I'd rather have a little bit of anonymity. And it's always this tug of war between being anonymous and having a public profile that prevents you from being anonymous.
But still, I gotta say that you as an investor, I love your humility. It's so cool to see that, especially because like that makes you feel more connected to us. We're pretty much like learning from you every single day, and seeing you as our example, that definitely helps us. I have noticed that another thing is to that you mentioned on this is to live within your means. It's not like you are gonna be buying a super huge mansion once you have 10 to 20 buildings that are paying some extra passive income. I've noticed that quite a bit of people that become rich, they don't stay rich because they decide to just like spill their money wherever they can find.
It's so true. And I notice it a lot in sports people. I've had the benefit of working with a lot of sports people. I would run an annual event where we're training sports people who earn millions a year not to squander it all, because the pattern with many high-end sports people, as you're aware, you're sort of in this game a bit, is that they retire either through injury or old age, usually in their early 30s. Yeah. And then the pattern is within 3 years of retirement, they're broke. And then they call me and say, Dolf, make me rich. And I'll say, okay, what do we have to work with? Well, nothing. I used to make $8 million a year, but it's all gone. And I hate to say it, but usually it's fast food, fast cars, and fast women in reverse order, typically. And it's gone. And so I don't get this mentality. You know, if you build up passive income and you use 10 or 20 or 30% of it for pleasure to do all those things that currently you're doing when you don't have the income to support it, then you probably will be sustainably rich. So it's all a matter of balance. You have to forego pleasure today in order to have more pleasure tomorrow.
That's right.
But you don't want to do it and say, you know what, I'm going to live like a pauper until I'm 80, and then I'm going to live it up and travel the world, because you'll be too old and decrepit to physically be able to travel or mentally be able to even remember it or know where you are. So life is all about balance, and everyone has to find their own, point of equity and balance. And
that's right.
But for me, it's, I'd rather collect experiences than things. Mm-hmm. And I know a lot of people, they have a mansion of a home in one city, and they have a fleet of beautiful vehicles in their 6-car garage. And there are aspects of that I think, well, that's pretty cool. But they also spend the entire year there. I know people like that who, if they have a passport, they've only used it 3 times and they don't like it because it's too risky overseas and it's too dangerous overseas. I mean, you find out what's happening with kidnappings and all of that sort of thing overseas. And yet I'll go to a place like Indonesia where many Americans feel it's pretty unsafe. And my friends there who know that I'm not from America, I live here by choice, by the way, I love it here, but I live here by choice. They say, for heaven's sake, Dolf, why are you living in America? And I'll say, well, why not? And they'll say, well, it's the most dangerous place on this planet. Your chance of being shot in a car park is way higher in America than anywhere else. And even if statistically that's true, I don't think that we have to live in fear of that happening here. But my point is, perspectives are different. And they live this happy life. And some of the happiest people I've seen, Marjorie, are people in little villages in Fiji, or I've spent time in Papua New Guinea decades ago, where they were the happiest people you could imagine. And they had the least. They had no TVs, they had no cars, they had no radios, and yet they were happy. That's right. And so there is an element of the more we amass, the unhappier we become. And so for me, rather than have the big mansion and the fleet of cars, I'd rather travel. And I travel an awful lot. I'm embarrassed by the amount I travel. You could almost say that my squandering of money is on, airlines and airfares and aircraft and all that sort of thing. But to me, the pleasure of going to other cultures and seeing other architectural styles, other ways of seeing the world, of foods that you can get, of national dresses and all that, I love that. So we all have our nemesis, and maybe mine is travel. I can justify it, but maybe those with the mansion and the 6 cars can justify that. And at the end of the day, as long as you're happy and you're helping other people, then that's good.
That's right. And that's the main purpose, I feel like, for any investment. It's not just to make yourself rich, but it's also to allow other people to reach out their goals by creating either jobs or by allowing them to participate within your deals. So many
You've hit on
opportunities
it.
to help
If you can
others.
help other people meet some of their requirements and needs, that is one of the greatest pleasures. And I always say, in 100 years' time, unless there's some medical breakthrough, none of us are going to be here anymore. And at that stage, no one is going to say, how much money did Marjorie manage to make? Or how much money did Dolf sock away by not having fancy cars? They're not going to, it's just, which impact did you have on the world? Did you help other people? Did you know the meaning of love?
That's right.
And I think when you can do those things where you can help other people achieve their goals, I like what Zig Ziglar says, you can get whatever you want in this world as long as you help enough other people get what they want. So a lot of my passion, a lot of my travel is going around the world, helping people realize that they can have goals and then figuring out ways of achieving them. And when you get emails or letters or notes or people call you up and say, oh my gosh, you probably don't remember me, but 20 years ago I read a book or I attended an event and I didn't think I could do it, but I gave it a go. And now I'm financially free. I own 6 homes and a commercial building and I'm looking at closing on another one soon. You can't put into words, Marjorie, how that makes you feel. To me, that is better than a ride in a fancy car. And remember, I'll rent that Ferrari for the weekend and get my fill of that. But then I don't have the desire to own it. They're difficult to get in and out of. The view is lousy because you're so low to the ground, you can hardly
pretty
see
much sink
anything.
into the ground at that point.
Right. And, you know, the benefits of owning it, to me, fade away. I'd rather rent one every now and then to remind myself why I don't want to own one.
That's right. And if anything, you're always receiving the best paycheck there is, which is the happiness of the people that you were able to help.
Can't put a price on that.
Thank you so
Absolutely
much
true.
again, Dolf.
My
And
pleasure.
thank you to our audience. So there you have it. Become wealthy for the right reasons, which is helping others so that way you can have the best paycheck there is, which is seeing the happiness of those that you have helped. We're going to see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.